Shock and Awe definitely feels like an important film, but I can't really say I enjoyed it. But I will explain what I mean by that. This was released in 2017, it's directed by Rob Reiner, it's written by Joey Hartstone, and we have a cast including Woody Harrelson, James Marsden, and Rob Reiner. And it's because of Harrelson that I became aware of this, decided to watch this. It sounded interesting. It's about journalists who are looking into the reasons for Bush's planned invasion of Iraq in 2003. And honestly, that part of it I did find interesting, but there's a lot of information in there, and I know I didn't absorb absolutely everything. I was 11 at the time, so I don't really have that strong a knowledge of this time period. There are vague recollections, of course, but most of my knowledge is information I've learned over the years, and there are certainly gaps in my knowledge, and this did help to plug some of those gaps and encouraged me to look at things from a different perspective and certain problems with the reasonings for going to war, and that part of it was definitely interesting. But that being said, I didn't particularly enjoy the whole experience. The film's only about an hour and a half, which I have to say I have to admire. Based on the concept, I thought it was going to be a lot longer, and I'm pleased that they didn't make it longer than was necessary. But it's a very intense experience. Maybe if I was more knowledgeable, maybe if I was older at the time and could remember these things unfolding as they happened, it would have been a different experience. So I'm absolutely willing to say that I didn't find it entertaining. And I think that's largely just because of my personal preferences, my knowledge of this. And that's not to say I couldn't have thoroughly enjoyed it with no knowledge, but there are certain things that happened that maybe I would have had more background information about had I been older at the time and could remember it more. So it's interesting, and I do think it's looking at some things that are really worth looking at and things that are really important. But in terms of being a film that I enjoyed, not so much. The performances are fine. I just feel like maybe the specifics of the film are a little bit dull here and there, and when it wasn't dull, it was quite intense. So when it wasn't dull, we're getting a lot of information, and that's obviously really fascinating, but it's quite a lot to digest. So it's not an easy watch, certainly if you're coming from my perspective. It is interesting, but I don't think it held my attention all of the way through. And considering it's only about an hour and a half, it's not that it was too long and my attention was wandering because of that. Do I recommend it? If you're interested in this as a topic, absolutely, it's worth checking out. But it's not the easiest watch. I think it's worthwhile, but it's quite intense. So I didn't necessarily enjoy it from start to finish. There are things that I thought were quite dull, quite slow, but at the same time, when it was good, when it was interesting, it worked really well. So for me, not perfect, but if somebody who can remember 2003 in a lot of detail, or if you have a particular interest in this time period, if you want to say, actually, it's really fascinating, there's a lot of information, the research is top-notch, I'll completely accept that opinion as being very valid. But for me, Shock and Awe was interesting. It made me think. It taught me some things. Taught me a lot, to be fair. But in terms of sitting down and enjoying it, not so much. It's okay. If it appeals to you, check it out. But it's not one I would watch a second time.